season, where every lap writes a new chapter in the history books. Over one incredible weekend in Ohio, the All-Star Circuit of Champions delivered a masterclass in drama. We saw a hometown hero limp his car across the finish line, running on fumes and sheer will to break a 2-year winless streak. Then we saw a rising star charge from deep in the pack to capture its first ever series win and a 5-figure payday. Meanwhile, the other national tours continue their high-stakes battles. The fan favorite conquered the wild Skagit Nationals for a massive crown jewel paycheck, while a World of Outlaws champion contender threw down the gauntlet with a statement-making sweep at Huset's. And the most anticipated debut of the silly season is now in the books. A 10-time champion and a legendary crew chief have joined forces, and their first weekend is only fanning the flames of speculation about what's to come. The intensity is rising, and the consequences have never been higher. I'm Russ Fritz, and you better strap in tight because this isn't just racing, this is Switchin Grooves. So, Nathan is off this weekend dealing with some personal issues. So, we will do this on our own, by lonesome, I should say. So, the week that was updated race recaps. So, high limit racing. Well, Rico Abreu conquers the wild Skagit Nationals. The high limit racing tour's Western swing culminated in a brutal, high attrition, and ultimately thrilling Skagit Nationals in Algar, Washington. When the dust settled after 3 intense nights of racing, it was St. Helena, California's Rico Abreu standing tall, claiming the massive $126,000 top prize for his second crown jewel victory of the season. The preliminary nights set the stage, with Gio Scelzi and Tanner Thorson picking up victories, and Saturday's 40-lap finale was a war of survival. Abreu, who started 7th, meticulously worked his way forward, taking the lead from Brad Sweet on lap 27. He survived multiple late race restarts and held off a hard-charging Justin Sanders and a resurgent Sweet to secure the win. The victory was a massive rebound for Abreu, who suffered a DNF at the Gold Cup just a week prior. The championship battle remains incredibly tight. Brad Sweet's third-place finish allowed him to slightly extend his points lead over Gio Scelzi, who finished 5th. The gap now stands at 27 points as the series heads back east. And the Jason Myers Racing update, in their first weekend with a fill-in driver, the JMR number 14 had a successful outing with veteran Darren Pittman. The goal was to maintain their position in the hunt for the High Limit franchise, and Pittman delivered 3 solid professional performances, making the A-main all 3 nights and keeping the car out of trouble. Over to the World of Outlaws, well, that was a gravel gauntlet, a championship statement at Huset's. While High Limit was wrapping up its Western swing, the World of Outlaws title fight took a dramatic turn at Houston Speedway. David Gravel, the championship leader, delivered perhaps the most dominating performance of the season, sweeping the entire night, or the entire 2-night event, I should say. On Friday, David Gravel battled past early leader Brock Zierfoss and held off Donnie Schatz to claim the win. He was even more potent on Saturday, leading all 35 laps of the feature to complete the weekend sweep and score his 14th victory of the season. The results were a devastating blow to his closest championship rival, though, and that's Carson Macedo. While Macedo managed podium finishes, he had no answer for Gravel's raw speed. The sweep allowed Gravel to significantly extend its points lead, putting immense pressure on the number 41 team as the series now heads west for a crucial swing through California. And over on the All-Star side, well, this is our big story. Um, the All-Star weekend went from ambush dominance to a memorial glory. And I'll start with the weight of waiting. The All-Stars finally returns to Ohio's finest Friday night racing. For 2 long years, a palpable void had existed in the Northern Ohio sprint car scene. The Napa Auto Parts All-Star Circuit of Champions, presented by Valvoline, a series woven into the very fabric of Attica Raceway Park's history, had been absent. This was not for lack of trying. The 2025 season in particular had been a crucial exercise in frustration, with 3 separate events to bring to the traveling series of Titans of the 410 wing sprint cars to the Attica Raceway Park clay, were all washed away by relentless rain. Each cancellation amplified the anticipation, transforming a race from a date on a calendar into a communal yearning. By the time the haulers finally rolled into the pits on Friday, the atmosphere was electric, with an energy that only prolonged scarcity can actually create. This was more than just another race, it was a release. The event, officially the opening night of the 2-day Attica ambush, carried the weight of this pent-up demand. It was a night sponsored by a coalition of regional powers, Great Lakes Truck Centers, Core and Main, Murphy Tractor, and the Atkins Group, and the prestige was reflected in the purse. The card featured a co-headlining bill of premier divisions, with both the visiting All-Star 410 sprints and the powerful dirt super late models of the American Late Model Ironman Series, actually competing for a handsome $5,000 to win prize. This financial parity underscored the significance of the evening, promising 2 feature events of equal stature. For the All-Stars, this was a historic homecoming, marking the 142nd time the series had sanctioned an event at the venerable Ohio Oval. For the fans, though, they actually packed the grandstands, and it was the long-awaited culmination of the season of dashed hopes. The air was thick, not just with the familiar scent of methanol and clay, but with the expectation that 2 years of waiting would finally be rewarded with a night of unforgettable action. As the sun set, the stage was set for a night that would deliver 2 starkly different yet equally compelling paths to victory lane. The masterclass? Well, Kyle Moore's unassailable late model victory. Before the high-strung drama of the sprint cars unfolded, the American Late Model Ironman Series provided the clinic in sheer, unadulterated dominance. The protagonist of this story was a familiar one to the Attica faithful, Kyle Moore, the track's defending UMP late model champion. From the moment the green flag dropped on the 30-lap A main feature, Moore established a command that would never be challenged. His performance was a study in perfection. Moore seized the lead at the outset and proceeded to lead every single one of the 30 laps, a flag-to-flag victory that left no room for debate about who had the superior machine and driver combination. The magnitude of his dominance was quantified by 2 crucial statistics. First, the official margin of victory was over 3 seconds, an eternity on a short track where battles are often decided by inches. Second, and perhaps more telling, this gap was achieved in a race slowed by only 1 single caution. The long stretches of uninterrupted green flag racing prevented the field from being artificially bunched up, meaning Moore's substantial lead was earned entirely through raw, relentless pace. He simply drove away from the best the series had to offer. This victory was not an isolated event, but another chapter in a career-defining season for Moore. It marked his 4th win of the year at his home track and his 10th career late model triumph at Attica, further cementing his legacy at the facility. On a broader scale, it was his 16th total late model victory of the 2025 season, showcasing his prowess against varied competition across the region. Perhaps most significantly, it was his second career win with the American late model Ironman series, a powerful statement that he could not only defend his home turf, but also defeat the traveling specialists who followed the series. While more celebrated his $5,000 payday, the rest of the field could only battle for remaining positions. Chad Finley put in a strong run to secure the runner spot, followed by Todd Brennan, Colton Burdett, and Greg Oakes, who rounded out the top five in a race defined by the masterclass put on by its winner. In the brink of disaster, well, fuel, fate, and a green-white checkered classic. Where Kyle Moore's victory was a display of clinical precision, the Napa Auto Parts All Star Circuit of Champions 410 sprint car feature was actually a descent into heart pounding chaos. At the center of the storm was Cap Henry, a driver on a mission. For 2 years, victory with the All Stars had eluded him, and he entered the night determined to break that winless streak on home soil. For 35 laps, his plan appeared to be unfolding with the same perfection as Moore's had earlier. Henry was in a class of his own, leading the field and seemingly cruising toward a dominant win. Then fate intervened. A late race caution flew, and it erased Henry's comfortable lead, setting up a green-white checkered finish. Two final, frantic laps to decide the winner. This single event transformed the race, shifting the battle from one of speed on the track to one of strategy in the pits that had been decided hours earlier. Every crew chief in the pit area makes a calculated gamble on fuel load, running their cars as light as possible to gain a critical performance edge. They fill the methanol tank with just enough fuel to complete the scheduled distance, betting against exactly this scenario. The extra fuel guzzling caution laps followed by a high stakes 2 lap shootout. On this night, that gamble was about to push the leaders to the absolute brink. As the green flag waved for the final time, Henry's dominant sprint car began to sputter. The engine was starving for fuel. Behind him, Cale Thomas, who had overcome his own troubles from earlier in the evening, sensed his opportunity and mounted a furious charge. The final lap was a desperate ballad of survival for Henry. He was no longer racing the competition. He was fighting his own fuel cell, trying to coax his dying car across the finish line before it fell silent. In an incredible display of managing a crisis, Henry limped across the stripe to take the checkered flag, his car officially running out of fuel as he completed the final lap. The victory was secured by the narrowest of margins, and Cale Thomas, who confirmed his own car was dangerously low on fuel, finished a heartbreakingly close second, lamenting a race that was nearly his. The podium was completed by Kasey Jedrzejek, with Brian Sabito and Craig Mintz rounding out the top five that had witnessed one of the most dramatic finishes of the season. It was a win born not of dominance, but of sheer will and a healthy dose of a fortune. A chaotic, thrilling conclusion that stood in stark contrast to the late model feature and perfectly encapsulated the unpredictable nature of sprint car racing. And if Friday night was a nail-biting thriller, Saturday's conclusion to the 37th annual Attica Ambush was a breathtaking exhibition. Cap Henry returned back to the track not just to win, but to utterly dominate. In a performance that stood in stark contrast to the previous night's fuel-starved drama, Henry led all 35 laps of the nonstop Napa Auto Parts All-Star Circuit of Champions A main. His command was absolute. Henry built a massive lead and won by nearly 9 seconds, a stunning margin in the world of sprint car racing. In a display of his blistering pace, he lapped the field all the way up to the 11th position. While Henry put on a clinic, Justin Clark turned in a remarkable performance of his own, scoring his best career finish with the All Stars by claiming the runner up spot. Following them to the line were Zane DeVault, Bryce Lucius, and Devin Borden, who mounted an impressive charge from 22nd onto the starting grid to round out the top five. And a long awaited victory in the 305s, well, John Ivy returned to victory lane. The undercard for the All Stars on Saturday, the Fremont Fence 305s produced its own compelling story of redemption. John Ivy, a former track champion in multiple divisions, broke a 2 year winless drought at Attica in dramatic fashion. After starting in the fourth position, Ivy methodically worked his way forward. For the first 17 laps, Ivy chased leader Logan Monjou. On lap 18, Ivy made his move, seizing a lead that he would not relinquish. The victory was Ivy's 18th career 305 sprint car win at Attica, adding another chapter to his storied history at the track. Monjou held on for second, followed by current point leader Seth Schneider and defending track champion Jamie Miller. Oh man, it was awesome. I mean, that race went nonstop. When the engines finally fell silent and the dust settled, the 2025 Attica ambush had more than lived up to the 2 years of anticipation. It was a weekend that belonged to Cap Henry. His sweep of the All-Star Circuit of Champions features was a career-defining performance. Friday's dramatic win broke a frustrating 2 year drought with the series, while Saturday's dominant victory cemented his status as one of the nation's elite. Henry left Attica with his 10th career All-Star victory and his 28th 410 win at the track, moving him into sole possession of third on the division's all-time win list. Most significantly, the Saturday win was his 15th 410 sprint car victory of 2025. This broke the tie he held with Ryan Timms and Rico Abreu, giving him the undisputed lead for the most wins in the country. The weekend also showcased Kyle Moore's commanding late model performance on Friday and John Ivy's emotional return to victory lane, a highlight for the track's longtime fans. After a long wait, the All-Stars returned to Ohio's finest Friday night racing, delivered a weekend that forged and burnished in legacies in the Attica clay. Moving on to the next All-Star night, well, All-Stars had a 3 race weekend. Attica Friday, Saturday, and Wayne County on Sunday. Um, so over on Sunday, uh, the All Stars actually rolled into Wayne County for their prestigious 11th annual Pete Jacobs Memorial, and a new star was born. Kasey Jedrzejek delivered a career-defining performance, charging from the 10th starting position to capture his first ever All-Star victory and the hefty $10,000 to win prize. The 35-lap feature was a tumultuous affair, marked by multiple cautions and a red flag on the very first lap for a flipping Ricky Peterson. In the chaotic early stages, the lead was a hot potato, with veterans Tim Schaefer, Darren Nida, and Bryce Lucius all spending time at the front. Meanwhile, Jedrzejek and Brandon Spithaller were methodically working their way through the field, using the frequent restarts to their advantage. Jedrzejek powered into the lead on lap 15, and despite several late race cautions, masterfully controlled the restarts to hold off a charging Spithaller for the emotional win. While Jedrzejek actually celebrated his breakthrough victory, several other drivers had noteworthy performances. Brandon Spithaller secured a strong second place finish, followed by Zane DeVault and Cale Thomas. Perhaps the most impressive driver of the night belonged to Trey Jacobs, who set the fast time in qualifying but was forced to start at the tail of the feature due to car troubles. In a remarkable display of skill, Jacobs carved his way through the entire field to round out the top 5. In silly season news, well, it just doesn't end. The silly season landscape actually remained largely in a holding pattern this week, but the most anticipated partnership of this year is set to become a reality this weekend. That's the Schatz and Silva era. Well, Donnie Schatz will officially climb aboard the Works Limited W, prepared by legendary crew chief Paul Silva, for the World of Outlaws 2-day event at Vado Speedway Park in New Mexico this Friday and Saturday. This is the most watched storyline in the sport right now. All eyes will be on the 10-time champion to see if this new pairing can instantly produce the speed needed to end his 2025 winless streak and turn his season around. But no new developments have actually emerged regarding the futures of the top free agents like Gio Scelzi and Spencer Basin, or the plans for the major teams like Tony Stewart Racing and KCP Racing. The results of the Schatz Silva pairing could be the first major domino to fall, potentially setting the market for other available drivers and rides. Actually, I wrote this most of this yesterday. So, and other major news though that broke just today, a little bit ago, we actually heard that Sheldon Haudenschild has announced that he will be departing from the Stenhouse Jr. Marshall Racing at the conclusion of 2025. Haudenschild actually has been with the team for 8 seasons and accumulated 44 World of Outlaws victories, and he will become a top free agent. His crew chief, Kyle Ripper, will also be going with him. This development adds another significant piece to the silly season puzzle, with both a top driver and a proven crew chief on the market for 2026. So, will he go to Tony Stewart? You never know. You know, rumor has it that there are plans in place already, but those haven't been announced. So, that's about all I can say about that. But it's going to be interesting. So, we'll just leave it at that. Over on the NASCAR side, well, we had the playoff opener. Kyle Larson won the Southern 500 in a classic performance at one of the NASCAR's toughest tracks. Um, Kyle Larson won the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway to kick off the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs. The victory automatically locks Larson into the round of 12. The opening race was tough on several championship contenders. Denny Hamlin actually suffered a loose wheel and finished 25th, while Joey Logano was involved in a wreck and finished 28th, putting both in a deep hole heading into the next race at Kansas. But next up on the schedule, well, the World of Outlaws are actually hitting their highly anticipated West Coast swing September 5th through 6th at Vado Speedway Park in Vado, New Mexico. September 12th, Silver Dollar Speedway in Chico, California for the Tom Tarleton Classic. And September 13th, Colorado Speedway in Hanford, California. High Limit, the series returns to Pennsylvania for one of the sport's most prestigious and high-paying events, which actually started tonight. And that's the Tuscarora 50 at Port Royal. 58,000 to win. So we'll see who takes that home. The All-Stars are actually on a short break before returning to action later on in the month. But as for my final thoughts, well, what a week for the sport. Just when you think you have a handle on the narratives, the script gets completely flipped. On one hand, the on-track action delivered everything we love. The sheer drama of Henry winning on fumes, the subsequent dominance of his Saturday sweep, and the emotional breakthrough of Kasey Jedrzejek capturing his first career All-Star win. Those are the stories that define a season. But the aftershocks from the off-track news have been just as powerful. The announcement that Sheldon Haudenschild and Kyle Ripper are leaving Stenhouse Jr. Marshall Racing is a seismic shift in the landscape for 2026. It adds a premier race-winning driver and crew chief to an already intriguing free agent market, creating endless possibilities as well as speculation. As we look ahead, the storylines are richer than ever. The most anticipated experiment in sprint car racing begins this weekend as Donnie Schatz pairs with Paul Silva, and how that partnership performs could be the first domino to fall in this now wide open silly season. Meanwhile, the championship battles rage on with David Gravel looking untouchable, and the high limit stars heading to the Tuscarora 50, one of the most grueling events of the year. The action on the track is shaping this year's champions, while the moves off the track are already defining the next era of the sport. So, already looking forward to 2026. But that's going to do it for this episode. But remember, we bring you insane motorsports moments, professional breakdowns, and adrenaline packed edits every single week. Whether you live for those sideways, mudslinging, dirt track sliders, or the rubber squealing, paint trading speed of NASCAR, you belong here. Hit that subscribe button now so you never miss a finish. And until next time, keep switching grooves. I'm Russ Fritz, saying race hard, stay safe, and we'll see you there.